So this is Hilary Hawke, and you're primarily a banjo player in New York. So how old were you when you started playing music in general?
I started playing music when I was, I'd say 5 through 8 was kind of the beginning, and I just remember playing music on a little keyboard when I was 5, and I started taking lessons when I was 8 years old, kind of formally on music, and that was on the woodwind instruments. I played clarinet and took it really seriously, believe it or not, and I got lessons, private lessons every week, and studied it until I actually went to college for clarinet and classical guitar. And classical guitar I picked up when I was 15 and started writing songs and playing out at like coffee shops, and really got into that. So I had like 2 instruments that I was really into when I was growing up. Yeah, and I knew like at 8 years old, I remember saying to myself or to my teachers or whoever asked, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I said, I want to be a musician. Like, I just knew it at that time. There was no doubt and, no question. And so, yeah, I kind of took it seriously, like, when I was a kid. Yeah, that's it.
So how did you find the banjo from the clarinet?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, so I was studying classical music, and it's really hard, and there's a lot of pressure on people when they're studying classical music, and you're reading a lot of music on a page, and I just really wanted something that I could like connect with and feel passionate about. And I remember, like, I listened to a lot of country and folk and bluegrass, and I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to get a banjo and just see what happens. And I picked it up, and it was so fun. It was immediately just fun, and you can just like play around and just make some noise, and and yeah, and I fell in love with it, and it just kind of took off.
So how were you introduced to bluegrass and old time folk music?
So I'm from upstate New York, and we hear a lot about Pete Seeger in upstate New York. I mean, even here, there's so much about Pete Seeger, and I just loved the stuff I heard. Like, I loved all his sentiment. I loved what he spoke about and what he stood for, and I mean, the music was just drew me in. I also listened to. I remember growing up and hearing Alison Krauss's, like, I was thinking about this on the way here. I remember hearing Alison Krauss's first album, Too Late to Cry. And then she had, like, a hit after that, I think it's called Forget About It. It was, like, a crossover hit in the pop world. And that, she was, like, the first female I remember hearing, like, in bluegrass music, where I was like, she's amazing. Like, she's so amazing. And I remember being like, I want to play that music, like, when I heard her. And yeah.
So you've been living in New York City for a while.
Yeah.
I remember when I was really young.
Yeah.
How long have you been living here?
I think it's like 13 years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So have you seen the bluegrass scene here change in that time?
Yes and no. It's like, yeah, I mean, it definitely changes. There's so many people coming through and playing, coming from college and coming through New York City and then playing and then moving on and going on to their careers, or Nashville or Boston. I feel like the scene has changed a little bit, just because the people move on. Like, we've had people in the scene that I don't see anymore, that, you know, you kind of miss, and you wonder, well, what happened to them? But I guess that's the thing about New York City. Everybody's so transient that things are flowing, and then sometimes some years you get a couple years of great players coming through and playing, and then some years it just seems like it's all the same people for like a couple of years, and you're like, this is great. These are my pals. These are my friends. This is my community. And then you get like a whole random bunch of people coming through.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of keeps it fresh, and it keeps everybody on their toes with what they're playing. Yeah, I think that's how it changes a lot.
Okay, why did you come to New York City for music?
I was in Potsdam, New York, and I just finished getting a degree in music, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life, so I applied for this grant called VH1 Save the Music, which was like a big thing at the time, and I got the grant. I got this grant to come down to New York City and teach music to kids in public schools for 2 years and start a music program at these schools. And I did it, and it was really hard, and I decided after I did it that I didn't want to do that anymore. I didn't want to teach in public schools. I wanted to perform or inspire people through like private teaching or group teaching. But that's what got me to New York City, and I have like a passion for teaching, but it's different than teaching in public schools, which I highly respect, and anybody that teaches in the public schools, that is really, really, I mean, it's just, I'm so grateful for the people that do that, because it's a hard job. It's your life. It's your life's work. So it wasn't exactly for me, but that's what brought me here.
What kept you here?
It's the best city in the world.
That's a great answer.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times when you hear people talk about New York, it's like the artist's place. It's like everything is so dependent on the art that's happening here.
Yeah.
How do you think the art changes New York? Or how do you think New York changes the art?
Wow, that's a really great question. Well, right now I'm in like the theater world because I'm doing Oklahoma, and so I feel like theater is a huge part of New York City, which if you don't know about the theater in New York City, it really is like a backbone of the city and what brings a lot of artists here, and dancers and singers and writers and producers and orchestrators and like just arrangers. Like, it brings a whole slew of people here, and that's just like one side of art. And then you have visual art, and you have sculpture, and then you have like modern dance, and you have ballet, and you have flat footing. And I mean, I think the ability for all these different kinds of arts to survive here is because there's such a cross-section of people that come to New York City and want to seek out, I mean, like the melting pot of cultures that come here. Everyone has an interest. There's enough people that have an interest in a variety of different things, and I think that's so unique to New York City and is really what makes New York City New York City. That's why people come here, is to see all this cross-section of art and culture.
Do you think that the city has anything to do with how the art changes over time?
Wow, yeah. Definitely. Like, I think it's the most skilled people come here to play music and play art, or to do art and play music. So I think you really grow a lot when you're here. And so I think that makes people make better art. I don't know if that's like a thing to think about, but I think it helps people to really find, push themselves and get to a farther place in their own art, or like art in itself.
Yeah.
Can get further here in New York City, and you feel that push, you feel the energy, the drive.
So you said that you're playing banjo in Oklahoma on Broadway.
That's right.
How's that going? What's that like?
It's great. So Oklahoma's been on Broadway for about 8 months now, and we are doing one more month. We're going to finish at the end of January, and it has been an amazing experience playing banjo on Broadway, and be a part of the whole team. It's Oklahoma. It's Rodgers and Hammerstein's Oklahoma, and it's reimagined, so it has a different, sheds a different light on the musical, and it's a little bit dark, and the cast kind of explains things different, or like they use the same script, but they interpret it differently through their acting. And it's directed by Daniel Fish. It's an amazing production. We did it off Broadway at St. Anne's, and now we're doing it on Broadway at Circle in the Square Theater. And you should come see it while you can. Yeah. Maybe this will come out before the end.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So how did you get into Oklahoma?
So I started, because I have the background reading music and being under conductors and playing in ensembles, I started to get a lot of regional theater work and just playing in pits in different cities and traveling and doing a little bit of that. My first Broadway experience was subbing for Bennett Sullivan on Bright Star, Steve Martin's show, and that was really fun. And then this is my second Broadway experience, where I'm the main banjo chair in this show in Oklahoma. And then it's like, once you get in that world, it is a little tiny bubble where people will, if they need a banjo, hopefully they'll give me a call, and I get to do that work, which is really fun. Yeah. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you taught music for a while. Yeah. I know that you did a lot of work through Jalopy, teaching music, and you ran the Junior Folk program. Right. How did that get started?
Well, I started the Junior Folk program with Lynette Wiley at Jalopy, and we started it about 7 years ago or so, and we wanted to have a place where kids, especially kids ages 9 to 14, have a place to learn music, because I felt like there was a gap. There wasn't anything for that age group to really get into something. And Jalopy had the resources in the space, and I was like, you know what, I want to do this. Like, I have a deep interest in this music, and I want to spread it to kids that maybe don't know about it, and pass on the tradition. That's what it's all about, is keeping the music alive. Yeah. The style.
So how did you first find out or get involved with Jalopy?
I knew about Jalopy before they were even built, because I met Lynette and Jeff Wiley over at a bar called Bait and Tackle in Red Hook, and Jalopy wasn't even built yet. It was just a pile of stones and rubble, and they were like, we need a banjo teacher, and we haven't built this place yet. And they're like, well, we have Eli Smith, who's a great old-time banjo player. Yeah. And they're like, would you be interested in teaching? And I was like, yeah, once you build it, I will come over there and teach. And now, 10 or 11 years later, and it's still going. It's really cool.
Okay, I'm sorry about this question. Okay. If you could describe bluegrass or old time in one word or phrase, what would it be?
First word that comes to mind is community. Do I have to further explain?
No. You can leave it there. Okay. So What would you say draws you to bluegrass now?
I am drawn to bluegrass now because of the technique. I love playing solos. I love improvising. I don't have a jazz background, so I can't really do it in jazz. I mean, I can play around with it. And it allows me to play like highly technical stuff and improvise, which is really fun to do. I think that's what draws me to it now. That draws me to bluegrass, yeah. Old time is different. Like, I feel like old time I'm drawn to the songs and a little bit more, like, not that I'm not drawn to tradition and bluegrass, but I'm drawn to tradition more in old time just because I love singing songs. I love the song singing, like Carter Family and that stuff in old time. And bluegrass, I feel like I'm not like a purist with bluegrass. I love like experimenting and doing all different stuff. So I think it's just like the technicals. I like the technique of it. I like the beauty. I love the ensemble. I like the roles that everybody plays. The mandolin chop. I mean, and the fiddle and the drive. It's just great.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was rambly.
So bluegrass and I guess old time too.
Yeah.
They're kind of a male-dominated genre.
Right.
I know for the most part when I go to a jam, usually I'm the only girl there. If not, there's only like one other one.
Yeah.
What is it like being a woman in such a male-dominated area?
I'm so used to it now that it's like you just kind of get used to the feeling that you might not be asked to come up to the mic to solo unless you push your way up there. People might kind of like look past you, like that's just like part of being a woman in this genre, which is a little bit sad. But I got some great advice a long time ago, and it's from Noam Pakilny, and he said to me when he heard me play, and this is like 10 years ago, this is before the Punch Brothers and everything, he said to me that, Hilary, you should just play the banjo as best as you can. Don't think about being a woman. Don't think about playing like a man. Just play the banjo as the best that you can, and don't even think about like those roles. And like as being like a woman, just play it and just play it fierce and just walk up and just know that you can own it. And I think that's like some of the best advice I've ever gotten. Because like instead of like thinking of myself as a woman in a jam, I'm just like I'm a banjo player and I'm just gonna do this.
So, it seems like in New York there are a lot of younger people starting to come up in jams.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think a lot of people are coming from. Do you mean like your age?
No, like there aren't that many people my age. Like it seems like most of the jams you're either somewhere between 20 and 30,
right,
or 50 and 70.
Yeah.
Why do you think all the like 20-year-olds are coming now?
I always think it's like coming straight from college. Like I think people come from Berkeley in Boston, and then they come down here to kind of like cut their teeth on the jam, and then they pass through and they go on to the next thing in their lives, or whatever. Whoever's coming from college anywhere, like we kind of come through to New York City, and you see what's going on. I also think it's like New York City is just known for being a younger city.
Yeah. And
then you get people here, and then the music is so accessible that it's fun to learn Soldier's Joy or Bile and Cabbage Down, and then come to the jam and play. So it's inviting. I think this music's inviting, and it's easy for people to step in and do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is the last question I have.
Okay.
Do you have like any standout experiences? Bluegrass?
I mean, I guess like, I really like, it's hard to pinpoint one experience. I love playing with my friends. I love like when we get to really dig deep and get loud and play fast and loud and just have a good time. Like those are my standout experiences, like at festivals or in a dark bar somewhere playing. I mean, it's always great to perform on a big stage. It's always great to perform for big audiences. But my favorite moments are just playing with my friends and experimenting and doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Finally got it done.
Woo!